Uh, I mean, to most people in the audience, probably Formula One is like, wow. But when I started to read about the Hintsa philosophy, I was like, wow. So maybe best to kind of, if you say a few words about your kind of methodology and the logic what you have been promoting about, because I'm sure quite many people haven't actually got any insight.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I flew last night from London, and day before I was in Geneva. I am traveling a lot, but not as much. I did 11 years until last November, when I finished my career as the medical doctor of F1. So 11 years. Those of you who know about Formula One understood that there was some misleading in this this brief, because to have 8 different Formula One world champions, it's not true, but together, so far 8 world champions according to this philosophy and concept, and this next Sunday we will get the 9th. So. But even we talk about F1, it's and high performance. It has not been the real target of this philosophy. 97, 98, I worked in Ethiopia. I was a missionary doctor there, and I had because we had to live with the sun, so we didn't have real electricity, only in emergency cases. So I have good time to use my brain, and there I draw my first concept of human well-being, and the target and the mission was to prevent diseases, and what is the core of the concept? It is first comes well-being, then comes preventive health, so improved health, and luckily we have had opportunity to test this in one of the most demanding laboratories in the world, traveling-wise, pressure-wise, and also physical fitness-wise. It's F1, and high performance comes from there. But the real core is well-being and preventive health.
Okay, so basically very much down-to-earth attitude, actually, when it comes to the approaching health issues.
Exact, because the most demanding issues in the life is how to balance the life, how to make simple and basic things right. Usually we think that high performance is coming from tricks and some secret things, but real high performance is coming from a very make baseline issues right.
Marko, you've been kind of following the logic and the methodology. Could you tell a little bit about your experience when you kind of started to follow the Hintsa method and how it has changed your life?
Sure. So we met with Aki about 2 years ago and started working shortly thereafter. And as Christian kindly said, obviously I'm no Formula One driver nor a triathlonist. But I think there are aspects in high-pressure global business and creative work where we don't really, at least on a leadership level, you don't have permission not to be present in your work. And while there's so much talk about time management, actually more important is energy management and how you could consistently and predictably have energy when you need it. That doesn't mean that you're not sometimes tired, but that you know how to manage that. And the framework, I think a lot of what has been discussed here over the past 2 days and even this afternoon, a lot of the current technological solutions are in silos. So someone measures sleep, someone measures something else, even the apps are siloed. Yet our life is lived as a whole, and the framework is holistic in the best kind of sense. So on the kind of surface level of behaviors or sort of domains of life, there's 6 different areas. I won't go into all of them. You can, Aki, say more, but recovery is very important, baseline physical activity, nutrition. And so for each of these areas, after a kind of assessment where you do the full 360 medical to see where you are today, and you answer questionnaires so you know all the damage done to date as well in the different areas, then you set sort of behavior change goals or targets in each area, and you commit to those. So in the case of sleep, I'm a very late sleeper, so I worked consistently to get my sleep sleeping time more consistent and a little bit earlier, eating slightly earlier. But one critical thing that I changed after discussing and seeing the facts at the clinic was no backlit screens half hour before sleeping time. So that means e-paper, like old Kindles is okay, but no smartphones, no iPads, no LCD TVs.
I can suggest real paper.
Yeah, or real paper is great. So basically that's like shining a bright light lamp straight into your eyes, and it's not something you can train against. So just this simple rule, half an hour before, and I don't follow it every single day of the year, but the vast majority of days. It's an exception if that would happen. Another example is baseline physical activity. So much more important for me than doing heavy exercise was actually lifting baseline physical activity to about 10,000 steps a day. As you'll notice, I'm actually not wearing a Fitbit or a Polar Loop. I sometimes do, but I pretty much know that it's 4 20-minute walks plus other stuff. So I started having walking meetings while I was still head of design at Nokia, and it became a kind of standing joke at the beginning, like wear your walking shoes if you're coming. Obviously, you couldn't look at models or things like that, but basically for all the management overhead type meetings or things like that, or where you need to discuss something, it was also better because people weren't booting presentations because they're walking and you have to articulate something clearly. So 4 20-minute walks a day gets you to, and 2 of those had to be at work, otherwise I wouldn't fit the time in. So those are, I think, 2 examples, but for each of these areas, you identify a behavior, and what I really appreciate about the method is you have scientific experts for each domain, really top sleep researchers globally, and in nutrition and personalized nutrition. And so then you basically have the initial consultation and you say, okay, with current research, we think if you continue living like this, these will be the consequences. If you want to change, we know that the consequences are like this. So, Tarmo, which one will you do?
Exactly.
And then you commit, and then you make the change or not. But they're very small, like Aki described it very well. They're very small incremental things aimed primarily, from my point of view, at being more predictable in terms of your energy and presence. And then the rest, like the high performance, all of these words come as a positive byproduct of that. So I hope that gives you an idea.
Yeah. On an energy level, of course, I'm sure the audience actually needs some good advice. I mean, the conference started on Monday for most of us. We have slept in 2 nights at most 1 night's sleep. Any good tips on how to survive today? Or what's the best recovery tips for tomorrow?
You have to sleep well next night. It's very natural and the best product. Sleep.
That's kind of one side from the personal perspective. With Heya, you guys have been trying to kind of bring it to the communities or the companies.
Yeah.
How is this collaboration? How has it kind of started and taken off?
Yeah. First of all, let me tie myself to the Formula One driver context. And I'm not a champion either, but I have 5 speeding tickets. So I guess that's like just to get some credibility here in the room. So we originally started this service based on our own needs. We basically focused on the same things that we focus on today. So we try to make the same mission, coming at it from the technology angle, making it digital, making these things digital, making them approachable, and making them entertaining so that people can easily keep track of their activities, hopefully connect with people who can help them do the right things. So that's how we came about. And there's a very clear logic, like when I listen to what Marco says, when I listen to what Aki says, there's a lot of these things that we look for, we cannot achieve with technology alone. There are things that require a lot of human interaction, but the human doesn't have to be in the same room necessarily, at least not every time. So it's important that the person is at the other end of a phone or things like this. So we can do a lot of these things sort of semi-digitally as well.
How much of it is kind of as you said, kind of mixing the brain power of the human and the technology?
I think it's a sort of a very dynamic combination. So I'd say that at the other end, I'll take an example of me having the opportunity to send a couple of emails to Aki, and he'll ask a few smart questions. It's probably a really high component of brain usage there, and scientific components and things like this, and very personal. The other end could be that I respond to some simple questions and I get automated answers that are pretty accurate, and they are faster to achieve or faster to get, and then also more scalable than everybody emailing Aki or his team. So I guess there's no single answer to that. The one thing is that the end user, the person receiving this advice, has to know how credible it is. And I think a lot of the automated stuff has to be, you have to be aware that sometimes it's not very accurate, that it's not holistic.
You might have some insight on this.
Yeah, I think there's so much talk about quantified self, but actually for most behavior change, when what's clear in the Heya applications and in the Hintsa philosophy as well, maybe quantified us is better. Like how can you see what another person, even just one other person that you respect, and that doesn't have to be highly sophisticated. I think solutions that are more tailored towards this will be more successful. But for example, I'm currently kind of buddy paired at Hintsa with one other person, and we have a Google Doc where we put every day certain basic things and behaviors that we're trying to change. Filling it takes about 90 seconds every day. It's just a moment of reflection, and I know that while it would be better perhaps to talk to this person and just say, hey, how was yesterday, that's not always possible because of travel and other things. So we see the numbers filling into this, and we know we're watching each other's back. And so I think this idea of positive peer support and peer pressure, if you like, is very, very important.
In the previous session, we were talking about the good words with Christian, so quantified us is the new one to implement for all of us, probably. It could work quite nicely.
You're the wordsmith. So.
We talked a little bit about the kind of holistic approach to these things. I also have I have one gadget here which I'm wearing on a constant basis, but of course I have about 8 of them in the drawer, and they just don't work together. There are different worlds for different data. I'm sure there is some startup with a kick-ass idea to actually merge these databases. Have you seen anything like that? Kind of actually getting this kind of more holistic approach into the technology field?
To an extent, we are doing that. I think there's a lot of things happening there, so it would be almost impossible for me to use this remaining time to list all the sort of companies that are somehow in that domain.
Yeah.
I think for us, there's a couple of things about this quantified self. One is what do you actually do with the data? There's a lot of data around, so you can get that data from a sensor, you can get it from many other sources, and I guess the key question, at least that we see, is how do you actually make it actionable and something that people understand? Because even a heart rate doesn't tell you much if you don't know what the context is. If you're angry or drunk or argued with your wife or things like this, they all affect how you're doing. And if you look at a simple digit, most of us cannot understand whether that's the right number. And that's what's a little bit challenging there. The other thing is, how entertaining is it? Is it something that actually motivates you to look at these things?
Yeah, you're right. Since 2008, I have participated and been involved to European Space Agency program. I've been a medical director of one certain project there, and our target has been to develop the multi-channel data input to the system so that we could get as accurate data as possible. For example, the people, going to Mars, so it takes quite a long back, stay there, hopefully come home as well.
Can they use Google Docs on that trip? Or
yeah, but anyway, this is a target, and I believe that we need some kind of objective data. We need sensors and easy to wear, easy to use, but it should be multi-channel information coming from those, and then for sure, then talking with the top coaches in the world. It is very interesting. Some believe in the digital data. Some coaches who have made fantastic success in sports, they said that I believe only people who listen to their own body, and it varies. But for sure, in major scale, when we talk about from medical domain point of view, then we need objective data, and it's very interesting. And it has been fantastic to be here today because I can see that in Finland we are quite advanced in that regard.
Yeah, but I think that point we were making about the coaches going into the kind of the two worlds is also the same kind of the bridge which the right answer is probably somewhere in the middle, like, with most of the common sense issues, right?
Yeah, this is what we are doing with the Heia Heia, because we combine into our platform subjective and objective data, and we try to find, yes, common sense is the right word. We try to find from there the algorithm which is accurate and also which makes sense.
But is there a kind of the difference in the end user? I mean, someone has been saying that Heia Heia, your basically users are the soccer moms who are looking for their weight. Your users, kind of the top users, have been the Formula One drivers. In a way, that I would assume they are rather different.
Yeah, for sure they are different, but human beings the same. When we talk about the basic demands, it is the same. I tell you that Formula One drivers, they are crying when they are sad, and they are laughing when they are happy. So we are human beings, and doesn't matter. And what is our in this Hintsa philosophy and the methodology? We construct foundation, strong foundation, individual well-being, improved quality of the life, better health, and then based on that we will create the foundation to improve performance, and this is the goal. I have never given any advices to Formula One drivers how to take some corner or when to brake. I don't know that, but
I'm sure sometimes they would have needed those actually.
But I can help them a lot in terms of when to say that when you can focus, when you are present, when you are 100% energized for the race today.
One question to all of you. I mean, could you all give maybe one example on how technology has changed your kind of behavior towards health? I mean, Marko, you mentioned the walking meetings, which in Nokia you get of course also the benefit there are no PowerPoints, right? But any other examples?
I can start. We actually did exactly what Marko is doing now. I have an action point to deliver you with a customized Heia Heia experience for your practice. But what we had was what changed my life, both as an entrepreneur, but also in terms of well-being, was when I was living in Singapore, and an old friend of mine was living in London, and he suggested that we practice for the marathon together. And because it was inevitably difficult physically to do that together, we started to do it virtually, using Google Docs. I got tired of the process a little bit relatively soon. We noticed the idea was good, the peer pressure, the concept was great, but the implementation really sucked, in our opinion, and so we started to work on it. And that sort of foundation is still what we do. It's just a different mechanism. But for me personally, it made me accept that, hey, okay, you have kids, you travel, you want to do something else than sports. Don't be so black and white. It's good if you walk sometimes and you don't have to run. It's okay, you don't have to count only the really extreme sports for your training log. And so it's more humane. And I'm relatively sure that what Marko explained about baseline activity and things like this, I came to value those, even before knowing about the Hintsa philosophy. But it's.
Do you have any personal examples, or is it mostly related to the people you coach?
Yeah, as a medical doctor, I would say that I'm very excited about the opportunity now to have, for example, in this project I mentioned before about ESA. So we made the test with last World Cup referees in Brazil, used these multi-channel medical grade wearable sensors, and we found some very, very serious arrhythmias in those referees there, because it came in the real time. And then I really had the feeling that it is fantastic what we have done. Now we have the device, we have the system. We can find what has not been possible before. This is a very exciting journey.
Yeah, I think another kind of example, maybe this is not what you have in mind with technology, but more from life sciences, bioscience side. And this is early, and I think a lot of the science on this is fairly early, but as you're working through different areas, one area that I'm looking at is nutrition, and I've been a pescatarian for a long time, but kind of balancing nutrition. So we did a personalized nutrition plan at the clinic. So you do a quick genetic test, 20 genes that affect 7 main metabolic processes. And I should be clear, this is not something everyone would do as part of the philosophy, but I decided to do it. I'm also going to sequence my entire DNA because I'm interested in that at MIT, where I'm a director's fellow. But so then you identify how that's looking in terms of 7 main metabolic processes. And it wasn't that much of a surprise. The Ahtisaari family seems to have bad lipid metabolism, for example, and you go through the list. But there were some things. I'm very susceptible to oxidative stress. And so then you do a nutritional plan based on that. So you tweak just a little bit, little changes. So it is a technology, but something that wasn't available a little while ago. So now we're able to be more personalized to you in terms of the baseline. And I found that very interesting and helpful so far.
Maybe to wrap it up, one question about the Slush. What's been the most interesting thing you have seen? Could we maybe all have a good answer for that?
I have seen quite many interesting people, and I like work with people. I love to see people, so it has been fantastic. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. It's the phenomenon, especially the people here. That's a short answer. There's many other good things, but that's the primary thing for me.
You cannot disagree. It would be completely impolitically correct, right?
No, overall, very positive energy. I think the program could build in a little bit more recovery sleep because it's structured to kind of, the second day is a tough one.
It is.
But otherwise, I think the diversity of points of view has been great. Personally, I had a chance to interview Esa-Pekka Salonen. I've been a fan for a long time. And just to see how he's managing energy and focus has been great.
I think the rest is the homework for this event, so we have to practice at home. So.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.